Hi there, my name is Matt McGurk. Thank you for joining me. I'm a licensed agent here in Orange County, California, but we do help people all over the state of California. And even if you're moving or living out of state, we have agents that can assist you as well. Today, we're going to talk about this Medicare Basics, Medicare 101, and this is strictly educational. It'll walk through the ins and outs of Medicare, help you better understand what A and B are, supplemental Medigap plans versus Medicare Advantage. So there's a lot to discuss, but this is a really good starting point when you're new to Medicare, or if you're just wanting to have a better understanding of what you may have signed up for. This plan or this presentation doesn't include any plan-specific information regarding any carriers, but it's more important to first understand how these carriers receive premium payments, whether they're primary or secondary, and many other items regarding Medicare, and that's what we'll talk about. So the agenda, we'll talk about A, B, C, and D of Medicare, when and how to sign up, depending on your situation, Medicare coverage services and options. And this is a presentation that I usually give, so it says Q&A at the end, but of course this is just recorded, so we'll skip that part. Okay, so the 4 parts of Medicare. Now, Medicare, referred to as original Medicare, A and B, are Part A hospital coverage and Part B medical coverage. And we'll go into some details on that shortly, but just want to point out one thing real quick for, it's a really common question that we get about Medicare, which is if I'm still working or my spouse is still working and we're on the coverage through that employer, do I need to sign up for Medicare? If your employer has more than 20 employees or your spouse's employer does, and you're going to remain on that group medical coverage, as long as the employer has more than 20 employees, you can delay Medicare for as long as you'd like. Many people get Part A, which is hospital coverage, because it's free. And many people sign up too, not only because it's free, but because they're told they have to, or that they have to register for Medicare. It's a very commonly miscommunicated or misunderstood rule, because Medicare says that when you turn 65, you need to sign up for Medicare or you might be penalized. The key there is might. If you're covered by an employer-sponsored health plan based on yours or your spouse's employment, and you stay on the group health plan, the federal government would be thrilled for you to keep that group medical coverage. They're not going to penalize you for delaying it. It's the people that really go uninsured, or maybe they just have COBRA, or maybe they're on a retiree plan that's not based on their current active employment. Those are the people that get penalized. But if you're working, covered by your employer, you should be fine in the vast majority of cases. Now, like I said, Part A is free, and a lot of people do get it. If you have a PPO plan through your employer, then it's beneficial to go ahead and get Part A, because Part A will act as a free secondary insurance to your group medical coverage. So if somebody goes to the hospital, Part A can actually pick up a lot of the deductible and shared costs that you would have had for inpatient hospital care. It's not going to help at the doctor's office or anything like that, but it can really benefit you. If you're on an HMO through an employer, then Part A is not going to really hurt anything, but it's also not going to really help. I would go ahead and get Part A if I'm on an HMO plan and I'm continuing to work, but you're not going to see, in many cases, any sort of benefit from it unless somehow the HMO coordinates with Part A as secondary. Now, Part B, or actually, sorry, before I get there. Now, if you have an HSA plan, do not sign up for Medicare if you want to continue to contribute to the health savings account through yours or your spouse's employer on a pre-tax basis. I've got a page coming up on that too, but HSA is really the only time. If you have an HSA medical plan and you want to continue to contribute to the health savings account on a pre-tax basis, then you do not want to sign up for Part A, because if you do sign up for Part A, you lose your ability to continue to contribute to that account. So keep that in mind. Let me know if you have questions. And as you'll see through the slides, my phone number is on here, 949-429-9849, and I can help you answer any of those questions or make the right decision there. Now, what I said earlier, and this is the last little thing before we proceed, is about the employer having more than 20 employees, so you can delay Medicare. If your employer or your spouse's employer has less than 20 employees, then you really need to find out whether the insurance carrier is going to require Medicare to be the primary insurance. This is not about penalties, but it's very important and actually could be more financially impactful than any sort of penalty. So if your employer has less than 20 employees, the insurance company for that group policy has the right to require that Medicare is primary. And if you have a large medical claim and the insurance carrier says, oh, well, you should have Medicare, or the insurance company says you should have Medicare, and you don't, then you could be held responsible for covering the first 80% of that claim. That could be huge. And we've seen people going through cancer treatment or have surgery get bills for $20,000, $30,000. And in some cases, they've kind of pushed back and gotten it covered, but the insurance company has no obligation to pay that 80% because the federal government gives them the right to say, hey, less than 20 employees, Medicare's primary, no exception. They have the right to do that. So these are called Medicare secondary payer laws, but they're very important to be aware of. And again, call me up. You'll see my phone number and email address, and I can help you through that. Now, Medicare Advantage and prescription drugs, we'll get into that soon. Your employer plan, again, if you're covered, you'll have what's called creditable coverage through an employer. The vast majority of employer plans do meet Medicare's minimum standards. So not getting a Medicare drug plan is not going to hurt you. But if you get a notice from your employer saying that the drug coverage that they offer through the medical plan is not creditable, meaning it doesn't meet Medicare's minimum standards, then you need to get a drug plan. That's uncommon, but it does happen on really high deductible group medical plans, like plans that have $5,000, $6,000 deductibles. So just be aware of that. Okay, lots of information right there, and but we're going to move on. So like I said, HSA is really the main thing where we tell people not to get Part A is if they want to continue to contribute to the HSA on a pre-tax basis. Let's get to the next section though. Okay, who is eligible for Medicare? The common answer is anybody 65 or older, but I do help people that are under 65 and on Social Security disability for at least 24 months, or have certain medical conditions that are listed right here. But things to know about becoming eligible for Medicare is that, for one, Medicare coverage always begins on the first day of a month. People often ask, like, hey, my birthday is July 10th. Does that mean that Medicare starts on July 10th? The answer is actually no. So Medicare starts on the first day of your birth month. If you have a birthday on the first of a month, like July 1st or August 1st, if my birthday is July 1st, then I actually qualify for Medicare to start a month sooner, June 1st in that instance. So, and when you retire from an employer plan or from a company, the 99.9% of employers will cover you through the end of the month that you retire. So if I'm retiring June 15th, my employer plan or my spouse's employer is going to cover me through the end of the month. And then I need Medicare to begin on July 1st. So first of the following month. And that's when Medicare would start. So, and like I said, Medicare can be delayed as long as you're covered by an employer plan. And now let's go through three different scenarios in terms of who is eligible for Medicare, and also, more importantly, when and how to enroll. So if somebody tells you that Medicare enrollment is automatic, that's actually not true, except for one thing. If somebody qualifies for Social Security disability, or if they're turning 65 and they're already receiving Social Security income benefits, that is the situation where Medicare A and B enrollment is automatic. So let's say I'm 64, I took Social Security income early. That means that I'm going to get my Medicare card about 3 months before my 65th birth month. So just be ready for it. But if you're turning 65 and you have not started taking Social Security income, then you actually need to go in and actively sign up for Medicare if you want to have it. You're not going to get a card in the mail automatically or anything like that. But if you're receiving Social Security income at the age of 65, you'll get that Medicare card 3 months before your 65th birth month. It'll start on the first day of your birth month, and your Medicare premium for Part B, which we'll talk about shortly, will be taken out of your Social Security income check. Now, when I'm turning 65, if that's when you need to sign up for Medicare because you're not covered by an employer plan, If you're not yet taking Social Security income, which is more common, people try to delay it for a little longer, or maybe they're still working, and you want to sign up for Medicare, you can apply for Medicare as early as 3 months before your 65th birth month, and you have as late as 3 months after your 65th birth month. So if I have a July 15th birthday, I can apply for Medicare as early as April 1st to begin on July 1st. So you've got that window ahead of time, and that's really when you want to do it. Even though you've got the latter part of the window too, after July, that can cause delays in coverage. So you're better off doing it earlier on in this case. So, and how to apply, that's something that I can send you. Just call me up. Again, my number is 949-429-9849. You can call me up and I can send you the exact instructions step by step of how to sign up for Medicare online and how to answer those questions depending on your situation. Now, another really common scenario is, hey, I'm 68 years old, for example. I'm past the age of 65 and I delayed signing up for Medicare because I'm still covered through an employer. You can do that. And when, let's say that I'm retiring in October, okay? So that time coming up, I'm retiring in October. What do I do and when do I do it? So if I'm retiring in October, that again means that I'm probably going to be covered through my employer through the end of October, and I would need a November 1 effective date for Medicare. And again, maybe I'm 68 years old. So when I apply for Part B, Medicare is going to ask that question. Well, hey, you're 68. What coverage have you had over the last 3 years, ever since you first became eligible? And that's where a very important form comes into play. It's called Requests for Employment Information. I send this form out to people all the time. It's called CMS L564. And usually your HR or benefits department at your company will fill it out. If you have a spouse on the plan as well, your employer needs to fill out a copy of this form for them too, if they delayed Medicare. This form is only necessary if you delayed Medicare past the age of 65. You do not need it if you're turning 65 because you don't need to show proof of prior coverage. But this form is to eliminate any penalties that you would have in Medicare. Now the application for Part B, that's another document, but there's an online process to this where you actually fill out the 40B form online. It's like a fillable PDF. And so what I tell people to do, I send them the instructions and it has them have their employer fill out the request for employment information. And then you save a PDF copy of that form and you can actually go online and upload that document on the Social Security website and fill out your information to apply for Medicare Part B. Now, if you didn't get Part A either, there is one additional step. But again, like I said, and I'll sound like a broken record here, I can walk you through how to do all of that. So just let me know and I'll help you through it. Now that brings up a point real quick that I forgot to mention right at the beginning. I've been helping people for a long time, ever since around 2010 doing this. And we do not charge, or I do not charge for my services. The insurance companies pay me to do my job. So you going through me or using my services doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't affect your monthly premium or your benefits. So my job, I'm compensated by the insurance carriers, and I truly look at my job as to make this as easy of a path as possible for you, and just simplify things in this overly complicated world of Medicare. I don't know how they made it so complicated. It's health insurance, but they did a great job and gave me a job too. So, all right, let's move on. What's covered in Medicare? Part A is hospital coverage, and that covers inpatient hospital services and skilled nursing facility care, along with hospice. Part B, sometimes I'll refer to it as outpatient services. It's called medical coverage, but it covers doctor visits, labs, physical therapy, durable medical equipment, things that are done on an outpatient basis. So Part A is inpatient hospital, Part B is pretty much everything outpatient. Now, I will point out, because I get this question a lot, Medicare does not cover long-term care. Medicare would say we are designed to cover acute care, but long-term care, like staying in a nursing home, you would need to have either a long-term care policy or pay for those services out of your pocket. And if you don't have the funds to pay for it, the state through Medicaid or Medi-Cal would help you pay for long-term care. So that is not affiliated with Medicare. Now going into this next section, we talk about A and B costs. Part A, again, being hospital. Most individuals, I've helped 7,000 to 8,000 people over the years, and most people do not pay for Part A, hospital coverage. As long as you or your spouse paid into Medicare for at least 10 years or 40 quarters, then you get Part A at no cost. And even individuals who are now divorced, but maybe they stayed at home and didn't work, if they were prior, they were married to somebody who did pay and basically satisfy that 40 quarter requirement, you can still pull Medicare benefits through your ex-spouse or deceased spouse for that matter too. So most people do not pay for Part A. The common situation that I see people do pay for Part A is maybe they moved here to the States relatively recently. They still paid into Medicare a little bit, but they just don't, they didn't satisfy the minimum numbers. So now don't worry too much about this page in terms of copays. We'll cover that in a minute, but before we do, just Part B medical services. In 2025, Part B for most people pay $185 per month. You will see a chart in a moment where you could pay more for Part B due to high income. Now, regarding all these shared costs, these are like copays and deductibles. This is not to scare you, but I will say that if you only get Medicare A and B with nothing else, you are, I would say, fair to say, underinsured, because Medicare has no max out of pocket. If you look at your current health insurance that you have prior to Medicare, pretty much all health insurance that follows the normal mandates has a stop loss or a calendar year maximum, where if Matt has a bad year health-wise, the most he's going to pay is X number of dollars. But if somebody turns 65 and signs up for Medicare A and B and doesn't get anything else, and then let's say they start going through cancer treatment or major medical care, there's no stop on the 20%. They will keep on paying. So you need to get a supplement or advantage plan, and that's what I help people with. So you do not want to go with just A and B. It can really hurt you financially. And regarding the Part B cost, this is an important page for higher income earners. And I've got two type of filing statuses set here. There is the married couples filing separately. There's just not enough room on here, and it's less common too. So I have single taxpayer and married couples filing jointly. So when you apply for Medicare, Medicare looks at your income from 2 years ago. In 2025, they're going to look at 2023. And then come 2026, they just automatically refer to your 2024 tax return. And it's the figure they're looking at, very important, is called modified adjusted gross income. So if you file as a single taxpayer and it's 2025, in 2023, if your modified adjusted gross income was over 106,000, you'll see, kind of like the tax brackets, the more money you made, the more you could pay for Part B. And they might even add an adjustment to your drug plan, whatever you choose. Married couples filing jointly, the thresholds double. And common question, well, what if I worked but my spouse didn't? Both spouses are still impacted the same way, even if one spouse didn't bring any money in at all. Now, the good news is, yes, Medicare is looking at old information, but their stance is, hey, we're just grabbing the most recent tax return we can from the IRS. If you've had a life event such as retirement that has caused your income to go down and you're no longer making in 2025 what you made in 2023, then you can appeal the adjustment and we will consider reducing what you pay for Part B. It's very important that you appeal if your income is not what it was 2 years ago, because otherwise they're not going to know for a while that your income went down, and they're not going to reimburse you retroactively if you never appeal it. So I have seen retroactive reimbursements after a person gets appealed and it's accepted. So they do that. But if you just never appeal, you're going to pay too much for too long. And it's only until later that they figure it out, and they'll eventually reduce your adjustment because year by year they do a review. And normally in December of each year, people get that updated letter saying, okay, we're going into the new calendar year. Now we looked at 2 years ago from the coming year, and this is what we're going to charge for Part B. So appealing is important. I've got the form for it. And like everything else, I can tell you how to do it so that you aren't overpaying for Medicare. Because as you see, this can have a huge impact on what you pay for Medicare on a monthly basis. So, okay, on the flip side, I'll just point it out. I won't spend much time here, but if your income is very low, then there's not a whole lot to discuss other than you can call Social Security and ask the question, do I qualify for extra help in Medicare or low income subsidy? So ask that simple question and they will go through a number of qualifying questions to see whether or not it sounds like you qualify for any sort of extra help to either pay your Medicare premium or even just help you pay for your prescription drug costs. All right, going into the next section, moving right along, we're going to talk about the difference between Medicare supplemental and Medicare Advantage. So if you live in Southern California or really in any sort of heavily populated area, you're probably, as you get closer to Medicare age, bombarded with just tons of information from a million different insurance companies. And Orange County alone, you're going to see that there's over 100 Advantage plans to choose from. It's too much. When I started doing this 15 years ago in Texas, there were like 8 plans available. It was very simple for people, but it has gotten increasingly popular or complicated as more carriers come into this space because it was a lucrative space for insurance companies to go after. So when it comes down to it, even though there's a lot of companies participating, you really just have 2 different types of plans to choose from. The first plan is called Medicare with a supplemental coverage, supplemental policy, also known as Medigap. And then the other option is called Medicare Advantage, also known as Part C of Medicare. Now, let's focus on the left-hand side real quick, and there will be slides coming up that I'll kind of breeze through because I'm going to go into some detail here now. But Medicare with a supplement allows you to go to any doctor in the country that accepts Medicare. So if somebody says, hey, I want the most flexibility that I can get network-wise, I'm willing to pay extra money for it, and I've always had a PPO, and I don't want to have to deal with referrals, and so on and so forth. I want a PPO type plan. They're probably going to want to look at Medicare with supplemental coverage. And the way that this coverage works, it's been around for a very long time. You go to the doctor bills Medicare for the first portion. So Medicare remains your primary insurance. And when the doctor submits the claim to Medicare, Medicare approves and pays their portion. Medicare pays 80% for claims. There's some deductibles there as well, but the supplement is designed to pick up the remaining cost. Today in 2025, Plan G supplement or Medigap policy, same thing. Plan G is a very, very commonly chosen option because when you look at the price compared to other plans, and then the benefits that go along with it, Plan G for a lot of people tends to make the most sense when they're looking at their options. So they'll say, hey, I don't know why I would go with anything other than this one. So if I go with a Medicare supplemental Plan G policy, all I have is a $257 deductible because the supplements cannot cover the Part B deductible. So what that looks like, I go to the doctor the first few visits each year. I have to satisfy this $257 deductible. But once that's met, doctor, hospital, labs, imaging, physical therapy, you name it, Medicare pays the first portion, the supplement picks up the remaining cost, and you have no copay. You have no shared cost as long as it's approved by Medicare. So it works very, very well, but it does cost more money. At 65, a lot of supplement carriers will charge somewhere in the ballpark of $160, $180 a month in addition to Part B. Okay, so just it gets up pretty quickly into the mid 300s So that's just be prepared for that. And then, of course, if there's income adjustments, that can also affect what you're paying too. And on top of that, supplement Medigap plans do not include Part D, which is pharmacy drug coverage. So when you go to the pharmacy to pick up a medication, you'd also have to buy a separate drug plan. So just be aware of that as well, that a lot of drug plans are $20 a month. But depending on your medications and needs, there are some plans out there that are 150, $200 a month. We don't see many people go that route, even when they're buying expensive medications, but prescription drugs are an added cost. And while I don't want you to factor this in necessarily, we really just have to look at your situation. A lot of people do go with the $20, $30, $40 drug plans out there. It's very common. Okay, the other option, so let's backtrack real quick, just real fast. I go with Medicare and a supplement. Medicare's primary. The supplement picks up the secondary amount or the remaining balance other than that $257 deductible. I go to any doctor in the country that takes Medicare, no referrals required, and I have to have a drug plan as well. Very good benefits. It's excellent coverage, but so are Advantage plans as well. The way these plans work are a little different. So a long time ago, the federal government said, hey, there's a ton of waste and fraud going on in Medicare. Let's pay insurance companies to do our job for us. That was Medicare's perspective. Billions of dollars in waste and fraud. Let's pay the insurance companies a monthly amount per member per month. It's called a capitation to basically cover the Medicare benefits for us. And so with that, that came the birth of Medicare Advantage. So these plans, you'll see Joe Namath and all these celebrities come on and say, hey, this plan's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And it includes drug coverage and all these other things. Know that you still pay for Part B. That doesn't go away. Even if the Advantage plan has no premium, you still pay for Part B. And many Advantage plans do include drug coverage at no additional cost. On the Advantage side, there are both HMO and PPO options. But at least in Southern California, most Advantage plans are HMO. There are a handful of PPO. The difference there being, real quick, with an HMO, I've got to get a referral to see a specialist, and I have to stay in my plan's medical group or in my doctor's medical group. So my primary care doctor is only going to refer me to specialists that are part of their medical group. If there's an emergency, though, I go to the closest hospital no matter where I am on the planet. So most plans give you worldwide emergency coverage. If I have a PPO, referrals are not required, but on a PPO, there's in-network versus out-of-network. You might be familiar with this. If I go in-network, I pay less. Those are doctors that are contracted with the plan. If I go out-of-network to a doctor that's not contracted with the plan, the insurance company will still pay. They'll help pay, but my copay or my shared cost is going to be higher. And a lot of the PPO Advantage plans in Southern California, if you go out of network, you have a deductible of, let's say, $750. That's just, it seems like a lot of them have somewhere around there. $750 deductible out of network, and then maybe you pay 30 to 40% of the cost. So it can still be very expensive, but Advantage plans have max out of pockets. These policies do have a stop loss so that you're not met with the potential financial devastation that people can run into if they only have Medicare A and B. So Advantage plans, like I said, don't worry about number 3 here, private fee for service. Those are only really available in more rural areas, but in most counties throughout the country, HMO and PPO are what the Advantage plans are offered. So so Medicare Advantage, you sign up for a plan. Let's say I can't name a company, so ABC Insurance Company. I choose ABC Insurance Company, and Medicare starts paying that company a monthly amount on my behalf. So the Advantage plan, let's use a round number. They get $1,000 a month from the federal government to cover me. I'm only paying for Part B. If the Advantage plan has a premium, which many of them don't, but if they do, I might have an additional cost there. But the Advantage plan can afford to charge a low monthly premium or no monthly premium because they're getting so much money from Medicare to cover me. And that's why these companies are so aggressive at getting your benefits, even though are getting your business, I should say, even though the plan is technically no cost to you. All right, so Advantage plans, many of them include prescription drug coverage. And when you look at the benefits, they're very good. If you're happy with HMO and maybe you've been used to that and it's worked well for you, then you'll see that many Advantage plans have little to no out of pocket for medical care, at least on the HMO side. Remember, you still pay for Part B on these plans. The important thing, the big thing with Advantage plans is they become primary. Medicare steps aside. So this is important to understand, that the federal government is paying the insurance company to take over for your claims so that Medicare can just step out of the picture from a claims administration standpoint and just say, hey, ABC insurance company, you handle it, better manage the claims, cut down on the waste and fraud. We, Medicare, don't have the resources to manage these 60 plus million people that are on Medicare today, and it's growing by 10,000 people a day. So I won't spend too much here, but Medicare is growing very quickly. A lot of people coming on. In terms of eligibility for Advantage plans, you just have to live in the plan service area. Like if I live in Orange County, there are certain plans available to me. If I move to San Diego, Advantage plans are very different in San Diego County versus Orange County, even though it's our neighbor. So, and then aside from living in a certain area, having access to certain plans, you need to be enrolled in Part A and B, and you can only belong to one Advantage plan at a time because Medicare is only going to pay one insurance company for you at a time. In terms of joining plans or switching plans, you have your turning 65 window. That's called the initial enrollment period, 3 months before and 3 months after. And then October 15th through December 7th, that's my busiest time of year. That's the open or annual enrollment period where you can change from one company to the next. If you're on an Advantage plan, this is important to note because it's not advertised, which, by the way, you'll get more mail than you've ever gotten in your life between these two dates, October 15th through December 7th. Phone calls, it'll just drive you crazy. But if you're on an Advantage plan, there's also a second open enrollment period that runs from January 1st to March 31st. Medicare says, hey, this is the buyer's remorse window. Some agent misled a person, or somebody didn't realize that this medication was no longer covered by their plan, that they stayed on, they didn't make any changes, and they call Medicare in a panic saying, oh my gosh, I need to switch plans. This isn't going to work for me. I can't be on this plan all year. And Medicare just about 6 or 7 years ago said, you know what, let's just let people make a change, but we're just not going to advertise the second open enrollment window like we do the October 15th through December 7th. So just be aware of that window, that time frame, because you won't hear anything from insurance companies, but most people are relieved to stop getting marketing material. Okay, special enrollment period. If you move, like you move out of the area, or you lose coverage through an employer, or you qualify for Medi-Cal or LIS, I need to update this, but new rules in 2025, people can change once per month in the first 9 months of the year, and then open enrollment, annual enrollment applies. Okay, so that's the Medicare Advantage. Let's talk about the Medicare supplements. I have already kind of highlighted the main features to the supplement, which is it costs more money on a monthly basis, but I get to go to any doctor that takes Medicare. Advantage plans that we just spoke about, those are more network based, where this feels for a lot of people more like an open network. I go to any doctor that takes Medicare. There's no referrals required. So it works really, really well when somebody wants very, very flexible network access. Now, if you're on Plan F, or you have somebody that's a family member on Plan F, and they say, "Oh, I'm not getting rid of Plan F. I'm keeping it forever. It's the best," and so on and so forth. Just know that, tell them to give me a call, or if you want to hear the 2-minute explanation, Plan F is very overpriced now, and the only difference between F, which is now closed out, people that can no longer get it, and Plan G is that Plan G has a $257 deductible. But oftentimes Plan G is anywhere from $600 to $2,000 less in premium per year, depending on the insurance carrier you're with. And so while you take on a $257 deductible, you'll save a ton of money on premium. So it more than offsets it. We are moving clients constantly from Plan F to Plan G. We've helped close to 1,000 people do it. I've never gotten a complaint by moving people to Plan G from Plan F. So if you're on it, really reconsider it, because there's no use in paying too much for insurance, and we're here to help. I'm not here to watch people pay too much for their insurance. Now, very important in terms of coverage, qualifying for a supplement. It's not always as simple as qualifying for an Advantage plan. So when you're new to Medicare Part B, whether it's when you turn 65 or maybe you retired after 65 and come off your employer plan later on down the road, when you're new to Part B, you have guaranteed acceptance. There's other qualifying situations too, like maybe I moved from out of town and come into a new area, and when I moved, I lost my coverage, or I involuntarily lost health insurance somehow. There's different qualifying situations that allow people to apply for a supplemental plan with no health questions. That is called guaranteed acceptance. The supplement carrier has to accept you. But if you start with an Advantage plan, the federal rule is that once you've been on an Advantage plan for 6 months after Part B is started, or there's other rules too, like when I turn 65, I get a 12-month trial window on an Advantage plan, and I can switch to a supplement at any time in that first 12 months. I don't want to get too complicated here, but it can be difficult down the road to switch to a supplement without having to go through medical underwriting. So know that from a long-term perspective, even though somebody might be in perfect health at age 65, if they want for the long run to be on a supplement, just know that I get people, they're 70 years old. They say, hey, I've been on an Advantage plan for 5 years, but my needs have changed. I want to go to City of Hope or this or that, so I want to switch. And I'm like, okay, well, since we're switching from an Advantage plan, you have to go through health questions. And if you answer yes to any of the questions, like cancer, recent hospital admittance, heart-related, cardiovascular, you name it, neurological, they're pretty broad in terms of the questions they ask. If you answer yes to any of those questions, you will likely be denied. Now, there are ways around the health questionnaires. Some companies waive medical underwriting, and that's what I'm here to help you navigate through. We're completely following the rules. They've got exceptions, but they don't advertise those exceptions. And so working with a broker can be very important in terms of qualifying for a supplement without going through health questions, because we know how to navigate and use the guaranteed acceptance situations to our clients' advantage. Maybe advantage is not the right word, since we're getting away from the Advantage plan. So, but the supplement, again, go to any doctor that takes Medicare. No referrals required. You do need to have a drug plan Part D separately, whereas the Advantage plans usually include Part D. Again, Medicare is primary, supplement is secondary. That's important. Medicare is the one that approves the claims. The supplement has to pick up the 20%. The insurance company in this scenario, when you're on a supplement, does not have the ability to deny claims. Medicare is the one that approves it, and whatever the 20% is, the supplement Medigap plan is obligated to pick up that 20%. They can't say, no, we don't want to pay for that. If Medicare approves it, they have to cover it. Now, you pay a monthly premium based on age. Here in California, most carriers are age-based. There's a couple companies that say, oh, we're not age-based, we've got a flat rate. But you know what? It feels like it's age-based because they've got this standard rate, and at 65, they just give you a discount, but that discount tapers off as you age. So people are like, well, I'm still paying more as I get older, so what's the real difference? But those are things that we can look at, and I explain to people so they understand what one company to the next is doing. One last thing with supplements. If you're on a supplement in just a handful of states, including California, you can change supplement carriers from one supplement company to another around your birthday. It's called the California birthday window. Very important to be aware of, because in most states, in order to change supplements, let's say a different company has a lower rate, you usually have to go through medical underwriting. But the thing to know about supplements is these policies are standardized, meaning everybody's offering the same coverage. You want to be with a good company, somebody that customer service is good and billing is accurate and they're easy to deal with and so on and so forth. But you don't want to be paying some astronomical premium. And that does happen where some companies are $100 or $200 more per month for the exact same plan at the exact same age. And once again, we help people look at that stuff and make sure that they're not overpaying. And you cannot have a supplement and an advantage plan. Just pointing that out real quick. It's one or the other. Okay, last section. Promise we're almost done. I know this is a ton of information, but that's why I record these things so that you can pause it, sleep for a few days, and come back for this the rest of this exciting information. Okay, so Part D, prescription drugs. You need to have a drug plan, whether it's through the VA or through your employer or your spouse's employer. And when you're 65 or older, if you don't have creditable drug coverage, as Medicare refers to it, you don't have some sort of drug coverage that meets Medicare's minimum standards, then you will be penalized. So that we don't see many people deal with the penalty, but just know you need to have drug coverage or there is a small lifetime penalty that you'll run into. Now, the great news with Medicare drug coverage going into 2025 is that the gap or donut hole is gone. So don't even worry about understanding the most complicated thing in Medicare, which I'm happy I don't have to explain it anymore. But now moving forward, all Medicare drug plans, whether it's through an Advantage plan or you get a standalone drug plan with your supplement, they are required to have a $2,000 max out of pocket, meaning that the most you can pay for medications, because your copays for medications are separate from copays for medical care. So when you go to the pharmacy, you're spending money, but the most you can spend at a pharmacy is $2,000 per year. And no, that's not per med. That's for all of your medications combined. So as long as the carrier covers your medication or medications, then you're capped out at $2,000. If a carrier denies coverage for a particular medication, maybe it's a compound or maybe it's Armour thyroid, there's a number of drugs that insurers just don't cover. If you're paying cash for a med and the insurance company is not agreeing to cover it, then that does not go towards the max out of pocket. Here's what your standard drug plan looks like in Medicare, though. The highest deductible a plan can have in 2025 is $590. Usually the deductible, if your plan has one, in many cases only applies to brand name drugs, which are like tiers 3 and higher. Generic medications with most plans are tiers 1 and 2. And oftentimes carriers will waive the deductible because they want you to take generic because it's cheaper. It's cheaper for you, it's cheaper for them. So there is a deductible with many plans that still goes towards the max out of pocket, whatever you spend in that deductible stage. And then once you satisfy the deductible, you either have a copay, which is a flat dollar amount, or a co-insurance, which is a percentage, depending on the medication and depending on the plan. So you have some shared cost in the second stage after you've satisfied the deductible, and you'd continue to have a shared cost throughout the calendar year until you've reached the $2,000 spending limit. Even though this might, for some of you, sound expensive or costly, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. Medicare drug coverage has come such a long way over the years. I used to have clients that would spend $10,000, $20,000 a year out of their own pocket because they're taking medications that retail at 300 grand a year. So now you have a stop loss of $2,000 for medications. That's fantastic news. And it has changed the premiums on drug plans, and people are seeing more upfront costs. And it's February of 2025 right now. I've already gotten a lot of calls from people saying, hey, I'm paying more for some of my medications at the beginning of the year than I used to. And yeah, because the insurance carriers were required to put a max out of pocket of $2,000, it seems like some of them did say, okay, well, we're going to charge people more upfront. But again, you've got a better plan. And that's what we need to focus on, is we've got better coverage than we used to have. So we got to take it as it comes. And that one, I think, is ultimately good news. So my information, the best way to reach me is my cell phone, 949-429-9849. You can email me as well if you'd like. But like I said before earlier, my services are free. Doesn't cost you anything. The insurance companies pay me to do my job. I'll be happy. And this is how I provide for my family. Please go through me. I'll sign you up for a plan, make it easy. That's the whole objective. You understand what you're signing up for, why you're signing up for it. And also on top of that, year to year, you have somebody that you can talk with versus calling a 1-800 insurance company and getting a different answer every time you talk to somebody else on the phone. So I'll be happy to help you out. Feel free to reach out any steps in the process. And even if you say, hey, I'm turning 65, but I plan on working for another 5 years, what advice do you have? I plan on doing this for a long time. I can give you guidance right up front. And then down the road, when you're ready, we can prepare to help you transition to Medicare off your employer plan later on. So thanks for joining us. Feel free to reach out if you need anything. Have a great day.